Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Sequester podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Brent. How you doing, Brent?
Taran, I am so happy to be here. I have been gnashing my teeth for the last few days, waiting to talk to you about this flippin' episode with these freaking people, and I am ready to let it fly. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Very excited. I enjoyed the episode. It aired last night on YouTube, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Very cool. I am going to tweet out the link right now. I will just tell everybody that for some reason it has a Survivor 39 Island of the Idols picture with it, but it's definitely it happens with RHAP. So it's definitely a Sequester podcast, and we are ready to go.
You gotta look at the name. It's all about the name.
Exactly. You got to look at the name. We'll fix it later.
I control the name. I always attach the name to the live stream names, at least. If the live stream name is messed up, then that means that I messed up. Otherwise. But yes, we are here, and we are going to talk about episode 1 of season 3 of Sequester. And if you are joining us for the first time, this is not a bad thing. This is season 3, but you are perfectly fine to jump in now, watch the first episode, and just continue from there. You do not need to have seen the previous seasons to enjoy this one. I think it's pretty self-explanatory once you start watching.
Yes, it is. I am just getting the link tweeted out right now, and there it goes. All right, we are ready to go, Taran.
There it goes. So yes, we're going to talk about episode 1. It aired last night, and it was an interesting episode. We had a lot of chaos here, Brent.
A lot of chaos. And really, I have to start by... Look, here's the thing. I want you guys to know this, right? So before this whole thing started, I was the one who, this was my baby. I went to Rob Sesternino and I said, Rob, let me cover this. I went to Rob like the Godfather, right? I said, I beg you, let me cover this, because this is the show where the gamers are at, Taran. This is the show where people will play hard and fast, and they will go after it from the beginning. And I can't tell you how, with all respect to some of these people, disappointed I was in so many of these flippin' people that they played so horribly in the first episode that I am almost embarrassed to look Rob in the face, but we will muddle through.
Oh boy. Well, that is strong takes right away from Brent. Yes, so we begin the season really. I loved the opening shots, by the way. It really felt good. Yes. I don't know why you said thank you, but unless you were the one that shot them, and
I was not the one that shot them, but I had just complimented Audrey myself on the opening shots earlier today. I was like, by the way, those were really good. So I thanked you in that. I was like, oh, I'm glad you noticed those too.
Yes, but we are introduced to our cast of 20. We did a whole double cast preview interview combination thing. So we've talked about these people extensively at this point. And we are introduced to them. They come in groups, and this is something that Sequester did in the previous season as well, that they are coming to this house, this mansion type place, in groups of 3 to 5, it seems. And that matters, because that's going to impact the relationships that these people have coming in, whether they're going to bond with their group, or even just the perception that there might be a bond with that group can influence how people then interact moving forward.
Yeah, I think honestly it's probably more of a practical matter. As you know, I went down and interviewed the contestants, and I was there on the first night, and if you were to allow all 20 people to walk into the house at one time, I don't think that they would have the camera crew to capture all of those important conversations. So I really do feel like it's more a matter of practicality, at least initially, in trying to introduce the audience to these people and also make sure that they capture anything that was important.
Yes. Do you know? Do we have the everyone in the first group? I know Thomas was there, right?
Oh wow, you're testing me now. This is I have so much written down, but that is not what I have written down.
I'm pretty sure it was Thomas, Jayla, Christine. Was Kimberly there? No, Kimberly was not there yet.
No, she was not there. She was definitely in the last group. Yeah.
Yeah. There was at least 3 of them there.
Yeah. Oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter. And in the long run, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, what are you gonna do? But yeah, so they come in, one by one. The house is interesting. I think we should talk about it. It's massive.
It is.
They talked about how it was seemingly bigger than the one they had before. They have more space around it for challenges, which I assume will definitely come into play pretty soon. And I also think it's important in terms of allowing people space to talk. I think that was a part of the previous season that sometimes people found it difficult to get away. But it did seem like that they had a similar challenge with this episode as well.
Yeah, it's a very big house, but I do feel like in some ways that it was intimate. The rooms are somewhat small and they are close together, and the rooms that are what I would consider to be important are very close together. There's an interesting little upstairs where it sort of surrounds like it looks down on what I guess you would call the den or the living room, but not too many people hung out up there. It was the usual of let's hang out in the kitchen, let's hang out in the living room, let's hang out in the bedrooms. Those are the 3 main places that people hung out in. Also, if it was nice, they would go out by the pool. So there you go.
Yeah, and the house is important. The house and the timing is important because there's a lot of people that are playing the game at the same time. There's a limited amount of space and there's a limited amount of time to strategize usually for these games. And so I would honestly like knowing the house, knowing the rooms, how to navigate it quickly is probably pretty important, both in terms of finding LOSs, which are like little immunity idols, as well as making sure that you are involved in as many conversations as possible when the strategizing comes into play. And I think that did come into play later in the episode. So the house is important, and I'm pretty impressed by this house. It's a decent, I think it would be fun if it was spookier for no reason, but other than that, I think it's nice.
Yeah, I feel like that Audrey was going in the right direction with the masks all over the fireplace, which I don't know if you noticed, but it was very, very cool, and that's nice and spooky. And I enjoy Sequester when it's a little spookier. But I'm also looking forward to all of the space they have for the battle matches. I know that talking to Audrey, that this is one of the things that she is probably the most out of the increase in production value and art direction of the battle matches is something that I know she cared a lot about, and we obviously didn't get to see that this episode, but we will get to see it at the beginning of the next episode, and I'm intrigued to see what they have decided to do with it.
Yes. So the groups come in. each group comes in. This is definitely the most hectic and chaotic portion of the show. We're not only getting to know a huge group of people, but we have a limited time to do so, and only so many conversations can be aired at once. Luckily, a show like Sequester is not beholden to these sort of like required filler segments and like hosted things that take up time away from the actual players. So we're seeing as much as we can possibly fit into one episode as we go through, which is definitely important because it really, I went through the whole cast. I did the cast preview. I watched the first episode, and most people I still would not recognize by name. And some people I'm like, oh, what did they do? Who are they? Who are they with? I have no idea.
Yeah, I interviewed these people, and I still have the same issues with some of them, and I still, for some reason, I keep mixing up Kimberly and Erica, which it worked out in that one of them went out in this episode, so that probably won't happen again. But it's not like I know who Kimberly is and I know who Erica is, but for some reason their names just kept getting flipped. In fact, I think I even had a tweet last night where I put out like I said that Erica got voted out when, of course, Kimberly is the one who gets voted out here, and it's a doozy to get there, Taran.
Yes, but I think, you know, what happened last time when I watched season 2 was that very quickly I started to learn who people were, and things really started to click along as the episodes progressed, and so I fully expect that to happen. I have an image of just all the players and their faces and their names in front of me. You know, honestly, you might want one as well if you want to remember who we're talking about. Otherwise, these names might be unfamiliar to you.
Yeah, I can tweet that out again. Here's the thing that I feel like that, like with most shows, you don't remember people when they're introducing themselves to you or when they're giving a confessional about what they do at home or how old they are or where they're from. You don't care about anything like that.
Yeah.
You care about stuff that they do within the game. Honestly, one of the people that sticks out the most for me initially was Kevin, because as they call him on the show, Dimples, because he was doing things in the game. He wasn't just sitting back and pretending that this was Big Brother. This is not Big Brother. You don't have the time that you have in Big Brother to get to know people, to make moves, to strategize. Honestly, I feel like that Kevin got it more right than a lot of other people did, at least in the early goings here, with the pace that he recognized that he probably needed to play.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it was an interesting thing with Kevin. Kevin walks in. They call him Dimples because he's got the dimples, and he immediately is in the confessional talking about like, oh, you know, hey, I've got to play hard. That's what the pace that I feel comfortable with. And I was like, that's good. That is Sequester. You should be playing as fast as you can because I think that is important. However, it pretty quickly turned around on, pretty quickly turned around on him. The second I saw him implementing that strategy, talking to people and then going to other people and finding out that those other people, like Deena, that he talked to initially, actually people don't like her very much. Uh-oh, what am I going to do about that? And then people telling him like, dude, calm down. And here was the thing for me. He got defensive when he was told to calm down. He was like, no, I'm doing it right. And pretty quickly garnered a reputation as being somebody that was playing very hard. You want to play fast. You want to play hard. You don't want people to see that you are the guy that's playing hard and playing fast.
Yeah, and I don't feel like he is succeeding on that level. Certainly, in terms of perception, he's probably failing. But I feel like in terms of strategy, he probably had it more right. Not just to give everybody a little bit perspective, I think that my interviews got done really late, like probably like 6:30 or so, and they got the cast and they were antsy, ready to go. I remember watching, like, I think it was Zach, Dustin, and Kristen who were all in a group together, and they eventually went into the house together, and they were just like so cooped up waiting for this because, you know, they keep them all separated and you're with like a little group of people and you can't talk because there's no cameras around. And then they finally let them in the house and they're just raring to go. So I think they probably all got into the house probably like around 7:30, 8 p.m. or so. And they were probably in bed by 11 p.m. because they had a really early morning. So it was really, really fast and nothing like Big Brother at all.
Yes. So then there were two pre-existing relationships here. One that we talked about when we talked about the cast, and that was
Hunter and Ty.
Hunter and Ty.
Yep.
And then there's also another one, Kristen and Brayden.
Yep. Kristen and Brayden.
Do we know
Canada's smartest man?
Do we know the story behind that? Because I felt like it wasn't elaborated on.
Braden's in the chat right now. I'm sure he can tell me as I vamp here really quickly. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that he has played some online, either Sequester or online reality games before, either with Kristen or with her twin sister, Charity. And that Kristen does know him from that in some way. So that's how, and I'm sure that his whole Canada's smartest man, which it just cracks me up because he's like, I don't want people to know that I'm Canada's smartest man. But then like he tells everybody he's Canada's smartest man. So bitch, you can't have it both ways. Like either like look at me. I own my shit. Okay. Just own it. Like, I feel like that's the best way to go. All right.
Yes. Is that Brayden with a B? Is that Brayden?
Yeah.
He says we flirt in online games.
Okay. Well, that doesn't tell us a whole lot, but whatever.
Well, he seemed to be wary of Kristen. Kristen seemed to be like, oh, I can use this, and he seemed to be a little bit like, I got to make sure she's close, otherwise I might be in trouble.
Yeah, I saw that too. He did seem worried. Kristen, for her part, seemed to be Pretty, like, I don't know, maybe I'm misreading her, but I felt like she was pretty non-enthused about him. Like, she like recognized that he's a gamer and that he's a potential threat down the line, but I don't think she was especially threatened by him or particularly scared about her place in the game. I felt like that she probably had her legs pretty much under her, and I felt like Braden was not reading her correctly in that he was like, I'm going to use her insecurities about being the first person voted off to try to get her to do what I want. I just never feel like that bore fruit at all. So I'm intrigued to see what happens on down the line with these two.
Then also, of course, one of the bigger characters from the episode yesterday, in the first episode, was of course Deena, who entered the house, and we talked about her interview, the preseason interview, which was that day.
It was a disaster. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
That interview was fucking terrible. Like, I was on the podcast doing the pre-show, talking about the women and saying, well, like, I hope that they had bigger fish to fry. That's what you can say about Deena. But honey, like, it was freaking terrible. Like, she didn't want to be there. She couldn't even convince me that she wanted to be there, and I'm on her side. Like, I'm the nice guy. I'm not trying to get rid of her. Like, I'm somebody who's just like, hey, bitch, what's up? And she's like, hey, where do I go? All right, are we done? Come on, let's go. So, like, that's the kind of energy that she then took later into the house, like 2 hours later. And it was not a surprise to me that she was ostracized or seemingly ostracized. I know she says she was sick. I know she probably was sick, but like this, V's in the chat from season 2. Like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. She flew down on her own money to go play Sequester for a chance to win the game, and she's boo-hooing about the fact that she doesn't feel well. Suck it up, Buttercup, and play the game. I mean, Taran, like we talked about this was like a self-fulfilling prophecy here. She said in the interviews with me, well, I don't want to be the first person. I feel like I'm going to be the first person voted out. I feel like I'm just not going to fit in with these people. But I've seen these women. I've talked, like I saw them in the car on the ride here, and I feel like that they're going to target me. And I feel like in some ways she got her wish, that they really were targeting here. And if not for the twist, she probably would have gone home.
Yeah, this is definitely not great. I don't even know what she was sick with, what kind of impact that had on her, but I mean, she talked about how she did make individual connections, but then she wasn't able to make the ones that mattered, she said, and
that didn't make sense to me either. Like, she was talking about, I guess she was saying that she didn't make connections with the people who were the loudest, but who the fuck cares about that? Like, make connections with people that count. Like, you didn't see that Braden or Kristen were especially loud, but they probably count more in the game currently, currency-wise, than people like Drew and Kevin. I mean, that's just my read on it. I have nowhere to go but what I'm seeing on the screen. And I feel like that if you make connections with a few select people, you're probably going to do okay. So I didn't understand where she was coming from with that either.
Yeah, I think it seemed to me just overall a lack of energy in that first night, at least. And I do think that she started to get some energy in the second day when they actually were strategizing, and probably saved herself with that.
I think she did.
Yeah.
So I'll come for the bitch, but I'll also give her credit too. Like, I mean, like, as far as I could tell, she was probably getting voted out. And if not for her own gameplay in terms of calling people out and trying to get people to switch their vote and saying, look, I'm going to vote for you, and getting people riled up, similar to what Judd did during episode 2 of season 2, I do feel like that she might have been in danger here. So I will give her credit. And also in the confessionals, you could definitely tell that there was a change in the way she presented herself, because initially it seemed like she didn't really care. She was kind of ambivalent and sort of apathetic about the game in general. But then once her name got out there, then she's like, it's like her psyche takes hold, and she's like, aha, I see who's targeting me. It's Kevin. First she went after Kevin, then she went after Kimberly, then she went, I don't know, Erica and Christine was on the list. Deena's got a whole list of people, almost as long as I do.
Yeah, it feels to me like that's just more her comfort zone, that she is, as she talked about in the preseason interview, used to kind of being on the side and not being accepted into the big group. And so in the spot where everybody was in a big group and you're supposed to fit in, it was very uncomfortable. But then the next day, once she sort of settled into the role of like, I am on the outs, that's sort of where she's used to being, and that's where she's more comfortable, and that's when she was able to come out of her shell a little bit more and be more true to who she actually is, which actually worked for her.
Yep, it did actually work for her. I'm excited to see that she's still here. I'm hoping now that she's over whatever was ailing her before, and she has a little fire underneath her now, that we'll get to see the reason that Deena was cast on the show, because I know there has to be one. Let's be real.
So we also had Hunter and Erica, who took the big master bedroom, and this was this sort of storyline there where they are now a duo, and nobody's going to suspect that they are going to be working together, despite the fact that they're both up in a bedroom together.
This is just Erica, like, not to come for her as well, but what the fuck was she saying here? Like, I mean, like, we're the undesirables, and because we would be unlikely to be seen as together. And I'm like, you're in the same bed together. You're obviously flirting with each other. How do you not think that people will see that? It's just crazy. And then when they asked Cameron to also get into the bed with them, Cameron's confessional, by the way, Cameron, I'm living for your confessionals this episode. She was probably my favorite in terms of letting people have it. I was here for it, and I like the music that they put underneath it as well, where they were like showing the awkwardness of it all, and that Cameron was, I don't even know if she ended up in that bed or not, but God bless her.
Yeah, it's just like, oh no, just sleep right in between the two of us. And like you could see it on her face in real time as she's also explaining it in the confessional, like, oh no.
Yeah, no.
I don't want to do that.
That doesn't even look comfortable. Why would you do that? Like, find some other place to sleep.
That bed is not big enough for 3 people.
It is not. That is a queen bed. That is not a king bed. I know. Okay.
Yes, Cameron really going to be complaining about pretty much every situation she's in throughout the episode, which I'm on board with.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I'm on board with as well.
So that's Hunter and Erica. Erica really seemed to piss off a few different people. Cameron was one of them. Kimberly, another one, as Kimberly just really hated Erica. And I'm not exactly sure where it came from. But Erica is another one of the people from the preseason that we kind of had our eye on as like, she might rub people the wrong way. Does seem like that was the case here. And Kimberly was one of the main people that has been rubbed the wrong way by Erica.
Yeah, and I don't even know where this came from. She definitely had a few choice words for Erica, calling her the no better than the cow dung that's out in the yard. That's the kind of player that she is. I didn't like. That's funny to me, and I laughed at that, but I didn't understand why she was so annoyed by Erica. The best we got was that it was a conversation with Erica and Kimberly and a few other girls, and I feel like that in that conversation, Kimberly was trying to get the vote to go a certain way, and Erica was like, sort of like, basically like, slow your roll, bitch. Like we don't know what the twist is, and let's see what happens, because it may not matter anyway. I feel like I can find fault with both of their gameplay in that part. Like, I don't feel like that Kimberly was right to be so threatened by Erica there. She felt like that maybe Erica was trying to throw Kimberly off the scent of the guys, because at that point Kimberly was talking about targeting the guys, but also Erica probably not the best thing to say to somebody. Just like when they said to Kevin, slow your roll, people are obviously going to be defensive when you accuse them of overplaying, so not a good idea to do that either.
Yeah, another person that rubbed Kimberly the wrong way was Dustin, who...
Well, she did not like him.
She really hated... She was like, I sat next to this, like, greasy guy. He smelled bad, and I was like, oh. And then he was from Calgary also. And then spent, like, the rest of the night like every conversation that they cut to her, she was like in the middle of explaining. And just because he's from the same country as me doesn't mean it's like, whoa.
It was just insanity. Like who? No one cares about that. I'm looking at these people, and they're all like world travelers. Like they're all like North Americans, basically. Like they all are North Americans, for that matter. There's no differentiation that I could tell. And no one gave a shit that Deena, I'm not Deena. I see, I did it again. That Kimberly and Dustin are from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. No one gives a shit about that. Taran. It was all in her head.
Mm-hmm. So Kimberly did connect with Tori, who is
shocker of shockers.
Yes. Who is going to have a conversation with her in the pool, which was probably my favorite part of the episode, as Dustin is just like trying to become a part of that conversation in the middle of
Why would you do that? I mean, like, look, here's the thing. I'm 100% gay, all right? So I feel like I could probably get into this conversation with these two girls, but I would never ever, if I was a straight boy, go over and start talking with these two women. Like, it's just awkward. Like, I knew instantly the minute he went over there that it was going to be awkward. And like, he should know that it's going to be awkward when you go over there and start talking to them. Like, and he, of his own volition, decided to go over there and talk with them, and then complained about how awkward it was in the confessional when he was like, well, what? They were like, well, what are you doing? He's like, I'm like picking up leaves or something. I mean, I don't know. What do I tell them? I'm picking up leaves. I don't know. Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, it would be like if I'm on this podcast and but Brent has been talking and I'm just kind of like, I'm just
right? Yeah. Just awkward.
I'm just here. I don't know. Are we talking about? Are we talking about what were you talking about?
I like the little the thing you did with your neck. That reminded me of him as well. By the way, there did look like there were a lot of leaves in that pool, by the way. So good job on Dustin cleaning them up, but that was not the right time to do it.
Oh man, it was too much. Tori did seem to intimidate a few people that she was too perfect, and so it seems like the main people that were intimidated by her were the men. That there were some
heteros.
Yes, who have formed some sort of coalition here, and it was very difficult to make out who's the actual core of this, because they talked about it and they were often incorrect, but it seemed like the real core was something else. So, do you have the goods here?
It seems. Well, they not only did they vote together, but I have to think it's Drew and Matt. That is the core. Drew and Matt, otherwise known as Lex Luthor and Thanos. And if you don't understand what I'm saying by looking at them, then you just don't have eyes. Because honestly, that is what they are. It is Lex Luthor and Thanos who are working together. Drew and Matt, they are the core. They are definitely working together. And I think they have some hangers-on in terms of Kevin, who seems like one of their lackeys, and Thomas, even though he didn't vote with them in this episode. They seem to have some sort of an understanding.
It seems like Thomas is pretty firmly with them. He was just throwing his vote away. It was
for reasons.
Yeah. Well, in case it became a majority and their votes are exposed. And then Ty is also somewhat connected to them. No, I felt like I saw him talking with them a few times.
Yeah, but he was right up there with Zach in terms of I wasn't getting much from Ty or Zach. They were both Purple Kellys to me. I saw that at least Ty got one scene. Zach got none. Like literally after Zach was introduced in the episode, I never heard from him again. And then Ty at least got this one scene where it was the three guys, I think it was Thomas and Matt and Ty, that were talking in a room together, and he seemed sort of like he was on board with that, but honestly it didn't seem like he had a whole bunch of other options either. I may be misreading that, but that's what that's what I'm getting from the episode, so that's what I got.
Yes. I did not get much from Ty or Zach either. I really can't remember much of what they did in the episode.
Nothing.
But we did see a decent amount from Jordan, who initially was really gung-ho about his group sticking together. That, of course, didn't seem to stick too much, but he is also going to find the first LOS, which is hidden in the hot tub. Unfortunately, though, he is going to be it's going to happen with Matt in the room, and then also I believe it was Jessica caught him picking it up as well.
Yep. Yeah, she did. And they both are, Matt and Jordan are under the impression that apparently Jessica didn't see anything. Jess did see him find the LOS, and she said she's going to tuck that in her mind and use it for leverage later on. The craziest thing was that later on in the episode, Jordan was confronted by the fact that he did have the LOS, and he immediately decided to not only lie about it, but then blame what seems to be one of his closest allies in Matt, the other guy who knows that he has the LOS, and blame it on him and say that he's the one who has the LOS. And then, even crazier than that, was that Matt, when confronted with the fact that Jordan is lying and telling people that Matt has the LOS, Matt wouldn't give people a straight answer. Like, Christine goes to him and says, so Jordan says you're the one who has the LOS. Like, do you have the LOS? And Matt's like, playing coy, like not answering her, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, tell her that you don't have the LOS. Why are you letting this obvious falsehood become reality by letting people repeat it? Like, I feel like you have to nip this in the bud.
This is very strange. And it came out of nowhere because, like, he was like, oh, unfortunately, I found it with this other guy. And then, like, out of nowhere, we get the scene where Matt is now being questioned about it. Like, oh, yeah, Jordan said that you found it. And he's like, well, no. And now all of a sudden, it's like this back and forth. Like, did Jordan, like, I felt like there was a confessional missing where Jordan explained why he did this and what the purpose is and what he thinks he's going to achieve from it.
Doesn't know. He's like, I feel like he was. This is okay. You called this. We talked about this in his interview with me. He said that he liked Judd, and he wanted to play like Judd. And we said, oh, I said, oh, he's a nice guy. He's really sweet. He was the best of the male interviews. Like he that's not his nature. He'll play like Jordan West. He's not going to play like Judd from season 2. And then he decided to play like Judd from season 2. Like, he decided to play crazy and fast and loose with the facts and lie to people that he has an LOS and found an LOS. So I guess he's channeling his idol here, Taran. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I guess so. And that's most of the players here. There's also, we briefly mentioned Jessica, who was involved in that whole thing. I imagine, the fact that she'll be able to confirm Matt's side of that story if it ever gets to that. And then also, of course, there's Mary Payton, MP, as they called her. And she is, it doesn't seem like she's doing too much. She's part of some kind of women's bedtime talk. I don't know. It didn't seem like they were an alliance.
Yeah, it seemed like a very loose alliance, if that. Although it can't have been much of an alliance because there were a couple of people sitting on that bed, and I think Mary Payton was one of them. And even though Kimberly wasn't in the bed, she was talking to her later on out by the pool, and then she put her in the battle match later on. So whatever alliance that was working together, it wasn't worth the paper it was printed on.
So yeah, not sure exactly what's happening there. And then of course Jayla, who I thought had a decently strong showing when it came to the strategizing, and she had kind of thrown some names out there, but successfully deflected away from herself when blame was getting passed around. So I liked what I saw from Jayla.
That was I won't go that far. That was probably the only positive thing that I saw from Jayla. That when confronted with the fact that she was passing people's names around, that she was able to deflect it and then laugh about it in a confessional. That was great. Okay, not so great everything else that I saw in this episode, but we'll get to that when we talk about the twist.
All right, so let's talk about it. So they go to bed. They wake up the next morning. It's time for this elimination cycle to begin, and for the first vote there is a big twist that the majority does not mean that you are going to be able to necessarily control this vote. That the rules for this vote are that if there are 5 or more votes, if there are more than 5 votes for a player to be eliminated, those votes will be exposed. They will be public. So basically, if there are 6 or 7 votes for somebody, those will be public. If there are, was it 8 or more, or was it more than 8?
8 or more.
8 or more votes for a player, those votes will be nullified, they will not count, and the next highest vote getter with 7 or below votes will be the person who is eliminated. And that matters because it's not just the person who is voted out that goes home. The person that gets voted out then chooses to other people to compete in a battle match. The loser of that match also goes home in that elimination cycle. So it's very important that you not only stay safe from the vote, but that also the person who is being sent home has no reason to send you into a battle match, which is why you might not want the vote to be public. You might want to keep it below 5. And so that's the tricky part of this particular twist.
Yeah, so let's talk about the twist initially before we talk about what the contestants did with it. How do you feel like this particular twist played on television? Because I have received some criticism about it, but I've also received some pushback on the criticism. I will say that Audrey herself tweeted me and said that the point in doing a twist like this is to prevent the contestants from jumping on the bandwagon. Like usually when you have 20 contestants at the beginning of a season and you're going to vote somebody out, that everybody just piles on to whatever the easy target is. And in this instance, the easy target would have been somebody like Deena or Erica if she's irritating enough people, or Kevin if he's overplaying enough. But that didn't happen. And the reason that didn't happen was because of the machinations of the twist. But I do feel like there is a school of thought that maybe this twist was not necessarily difficult to understand in terms of the contestants, but it was somewhat difficult to explain and get across to the audience. Do you feel like that has any merit, Taran?
I don't know if it was. I think I like it overall. I think for me,
I do too.
It was the fact that it was the first episode, and I mean I was trying to get to know these people before the show even started, and I had trouble following what was happening because it was so much in the first episode. I don't think it would have been too bad if it was like a simple, they vote out Deena in the first episode and then she's pissed off and calls out 2 people for the battle match, and that's the exciting part for the next episode. And then in the next episode they have a twist like this where they prevent that majority from doing the same thing twice in a row, or something along those lines. There was so much chaos that was happening, and I still was learning who these people were and who's actually working with who, that I've watched this whole episode now and I have no idea who's actually working with who at this point, apart from perhaps those couple of guys, and even then I was like, I don't know which ones are actually working together.
So I take your point. So here's the deal. I do feel like that production, and that production being Audrey in this case, Audrey Middleton, is probably between a rock and a hard place here, because the season 2, with all respect, season 2 was amazing, but the first episode was kind of boring. It really was. It was a pretty boring twist. It was like, remember, it was half safe and half not. That was the whole twist. That was when we had Hannah sit everybody down, tell me your strengths and weaknesses, which was laughable on its face. It wasn't fun for me to watch. And by the end, I was just waiting for it to be done. Okay, so there's that. So it was a little boring. I feel like that perhaps this twist was a little bit too much the other way, where there was so much going on and so much chaos that it definitely kept my eyeballs on the screen trying to figure out what the hell was happening. But on the other hand, I do feel like that perhaps it detracted from the contestants just a little bit. Overall, though, I would rather them go this way rather than it be boring. If you're trying to attract people to a new show, it's probably like, she's probably damned if she does and damned if she doesn't here. So that's probably where I'm at on that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, look, I think that first episodes of these competitive reality shows are always a bit of a drag.
They are.
And I've never really... there's never been like a season of Big Brother or a season. I mean, there have been some good season premieres of Survivor, but they're usually like double episodes that are really good,
or at least an hour and a half. Yeah.
Or they're all-star seasons where we already know everybody. Like Heroes versus Villains was a fantastic premiere because we already knew everybody. And so, like, I think it's unfortunate, but it's just like the opening is just always going to be a little more difficult because you don't know who people are. You're not invested in them yet. And so, I think you're right. I think that whether you go, the season 2 route, which I think was better in the sense that it helped introduce you to each individual a little bit more because it happened individually that the vest was being passed, but was maybe a little slower in terms of actual strategizing and action, versus this one where there was a lot of chaos, a lot of running around. There were confrontations, lots of crazy stuff happening, but more difficult to follow. And it got to a point where I was just like, I'm not even gonna try to, because it's just gonna they're just gonna read a vote at the end and it's gonna be the way it is. There's no way I can even guess what's gonna happen at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I did not know where it was going. I felt like Dustin was probably safe. That was the big what's going to happen to me. I was less concerned about who necessarily went home and more, is Dustin going to fall on his face here? Like, I really felt like that the end of the episode is going to rise and fall on whether or not Dustin is punished for what I believe was a bad move. Is he going to be punished for volunteering? Yes, you can vote for me. And by the way, just to give you guys perspective, they only had about 45 minutes from the time the twist was announced to the time that they have to vote. That's how long they have to play. Like, cycles of this game go at lightning speed. And the reason for that is because then they have a battle match afterwards, and then they have confessionals that they have to do. Like, the confessionals take so long when you have this many people in play that you really have to run through the game really fast. So when we say that Sequester moves fast, it moves fast. So that was the crazy thing that Dustin did here, was volunteering himself to, oh yeah, y'all can vote for me, when they really know they're only going to have max at about an hour to strategize, which is not a long time to us, but in Sequester terms is probably an eternity for these people in the house.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if maybe like just having maybe one person like be our perspective in this episode to narrate like what's happening.
I was pushing
but
for.
But even then, like, how are they gonna know what was happening in the whole thing? Like, I think it was so chaotic. It was always going to be a bit difficult to follow, which I don't mind sometimes. But I think combined with the fact that I also didn't really know who these people were too much, it was definitely a lot. But still enjoyable, and that confusion didn't last for very long. I was enjoying the process up until maybe just a few minutes before the vote reveal, when I was like, all right, whatever, I give up at this point.
Yeah, me too. So, that's where I was too. Yeah, once it started, I was totally invested. Once the twist started, I was like, okay, how are they going to navigate around this problem here? What are they going to do? And I really felt like, of the people who I was listening to, Kristen probably had it the most right, where she was like, look, all we need to do is get me and 4 other people in a room, pick a name that nobody else is picking, let's all agree on it, and then disperse. That's all you had to do. I just want to tell y'all, season 3 cast, if you could just listen to Kristen for the rest of the time, you'll be good. You'll be straight. That's all you got to do. Just listen to Kristen. She knows what she's doing. If you don't listen to Kristen, let's listen to Braden. He at least understands the twist and understands what needs to happen, and was smart enough himself not to volunteer for this twist and being the sacrificial lamb. I have it written down here. The craziest thing to me was that Jayla said, we need somebody to be the sacrificial lamb. So that's what they decided. You know what? We're all going to pick somebody to be the sacrificial lamb. We'll all vote for that person. Our votes won't count. And then we can figure out the rest of it, like the important part about who goes home at the end. She said, we need somebody to be the sacrificial lamb. That way we can divide the votes later on. And that would work great, except for you forgot to divide the votes later on because you were too worried about keeping freaking Dustin safe, which Dustin seems like a nice guy, but why is everyone so worried about him? I saw Tori later on talking about, well, I don't want Dustin to go home because, he doesn't deserve that, and I don't want him to be blindsided. And I'm like, bitch, worry about yourself. Like, if you worry... Okay, let me, here we go. Okay, this is what I want to tell you guys. This is what happened tonight. Before we even talk about the twist, I'm going to tell you what these people did. These people, and there were 12 of them, 12 people, okay, that decided that they are going to abdicate their responsibility and they're going to vote for someone knowing that their vote in the end won't count. That is what happened here. I went to Rob and I was like, these are the gamers. These are the people that aren't afraid to play. And then you have people like Kristen and Braden decide to vote for Dustin. And this would be the equivalent, Taran, I mean, if they played with Russell Hantz on Survivor, and they know Russell has an immunity idol, they know he's going to play it. They've looked into the future. They have a crystal ball, and they're able to see, you know what? Russell's going to play his idol tonight. And they say, you know what? I'm still going to vote for Russell Hantz. I'm still going to make sure that I take my vote and flush it down the toilet, because that's what these people did. 12 people out of 20 people decided to vote for Dustin, knowing that their vote won't count, leaving the decision about who actually went home in the hands of 8 other people, and those people were the people who made the decision in the end. So I don't understand what these people were thinking here. In fact, all 12 of you who voted for Dustin, besides Dustin, deserve to go home at this point, because Taran, are you with me here? It literally could have been any of them. They had no protection whatsoever.
I'm not with you here.
Okay, well, tell me why.
Well, I think the Russell Hantz thing it doesn't work, because in Survivor, the person that gets voted out doesn't choose 2 people to then battle against each other with where one goes home. I think that by throwing your vote away, by flushing your vote away, and putting it on somebody who wants it to be there, it basically gives you much better odds of not being chosen to be the person that is chosen for a battle match, because the person that is eliminated isn't going to be particularly mad at you for being eliminated, unless you were exposed as saying their name at one point or something along those lines. So it's a safe play to say, hey, I'm going to build trust with you, Dustin. I'm going to give you my vote. It's going to help make you safe, and it's also going to prevent me from having my own vote exposed as as somebody who is voting somebody else out. Being a vote cast in this particular way that the twist was functioning was dangerous, and so being able to throw it away quietly is a nice thing to do, as long as you have your ear out, as long as you're making sure that you don't hear your name from anywhere, then you're probably okay.
Yeah, I was just really disappointed in them, because here's the thing. I understand where you're coming from in terms of, well, you don't want to get chosen for the battle match, but I don't really think that you can predict what's going to happen with these battle match selections. We saw freaking Kimberly at the end. She's making her battle match selections, and she talks about a freaking male alliance somewhere, and then out of freaking nowhere chooses Mary Payton. It doesn't make sense. This is the problem that I saw during season 2, is that so many times, and I even talked about this in my interviews with these people, I said, are you going to make sense in your battle match selections? Oh yeah, Brent, I'll make sense. You'll understand where I'm coming from with my narrative. Not a lick of sense. I didn't understand anything about why Kimberly in the end chose Mary Payton, who did not vote for Kimberly here, and I couldn't see any animosity between them whatsoever, and Drew, who also did not vote for Kimberly here. So please tell me that you can avoid battle matches, because it doesn't look to me like you have any real control over it, so you might as well not even fight it, because the things that you think that could work against you, like, oh, I voted for someone, or oh, I targeted them, could also work to your benefit, in that, like we saw during season 2 where Judd was targeting Hannah, but she respected the fact that Judd at least came after her and chose 2 other people instead. So I feel like trying to fight the whole I don't want to be chosen for a battle match thing is just dead and gone here. You cannot predict people and their own agendas.
I mean, sure, but in the same way, you can't predict when people are going to vote you out either. I think you should be doing what you
predictable.
I mean, it's more predictable in the sense that it's easier to catch because more people are involved, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to avoid, if you are one of 5 votes that are exposed as having eliminated somebody, there's a decent chance that person's picking 2 of those 5 people as opposed to picking 2 of 12 people. You know what I mean? That's much better odds for you.
Yeah, I hear that. That's the thing that I don't feel like, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I don't feel like Audrey necessarily saw the repercussions of the reverse side of this twist, which the contestants quickly realized, which is that, yeah, you're going to be exposed if you vote for someone and their votes are over 8, but in doing so, you're also exposing the people that didn't vote for that person. So, if Kimberly goes up here and is the person voted out, she's going to get to see who all voted for Dustin and knows that those people didn't vote for her. She knows that the people who actually voted for her are amongst the other 8. So that's probably something that maybe either wasn't realized here or is a definite offshoot and it's something that you're going to have to deal with insofar as this twist goes, because it's not something that's necessarily predictable, and it just causes chaos amongst people because they're damned if they do, and then they're damned if they don't again.
Yeah, well, it seems like we have Kimberly in the chat here. I would love to get her explanation as to why she chose the people she did, if she can say that yet. But
apparently she said there's going to be a reunion taped, which and also keep in mind she could technically still come back into the game. Like, I famously picked Kimberly to win the game, and she's going to go out here, which I did it again, Taran. Another winner for Brent Wolgamott. But she technically could come back into the game. Not technically, she could come back into the game, just like Hamza did during season 2. There's going to be a battle back after 10 people are eliminated, so she's going to have one more chance to get back into the game. And I know that they're also taping a reunion. So who knows about that? I don't know if she can tell me why she chose Mary Payton, but all I've seen from her thus far on Twitter is stay tuned. So
yes, that's what we're getting here
at this point.
Well, yeah. my guess would be that she knew that there was a guys alliance. She knew that those people in the guys alliance were not of the people who voted for Dustin, which means decent chance the guys alliance probably eliminated her, that they were at least 3 if not more votes in that group of 8, and so she wanted to kind of take some kind of strike at them, but at the same time it was probably looking forward to the battle back, which happens after I believe 10 people are eliminated, which means that, as you mentioned, she still has a chance to win the game, and maybe saw that Mary Payton was somebody that was perhaps a weak player and wouldn't, have as good a chance of beating her in some kind of competition to get back into the game, and so decided to take a strike at the guys alliance that she saw as having not voted for Dustin, therefore maybe having gone after her, and at the same time putting in a weaker player so that she could probably lose to that guy and then have an easier time making it back into the game.
So here's the thing. First of all, I don't understand this trying to pick your opponent for the battle match or to the battle back. You want this person to stay in because they're weak, and you want this person to not be in because they're strong. Like, we've seen that Audrey Middleton goes out of her way to make sure that matches and battle back matches are gender neutral. They're not going to have anything to do with the biggest guy or the biggest muscles or the biggest physicality. So it really doesn't matter who you pick. Like, anyone, like Hamza won, and he couldn't blow a freaking ping pong ball up a table.
I mean, you're
telling me that anyway, that's not the point. The point is, I feel like that is a really generous reading, and that's not the first time I've seen that, by the way. She wanted to target one of the guys because there's a guys alliance, and she wanted to target Mary Payton because Mary Payton is probably pretty weak, which we've seen no evidence of that. But, she's a weaker competitor, so...
Well, I'm saying that's what she may have thought. I don't necessarily think that.
I know. I agree. I certainly agree with that. I feel like that's pretty generous. That's assigning a lot of credit to her that I don't see on the screen. And I didn't understand, look, Kimberly, I love you, but I'm going to keep it real. You sound like a goddamn idiot when you go up there and say... I know there's a guys alliance. I know that they're targeting me. I know who's in it, and I know who's not. And now, for my battle match selections, I pick Mary Payton.
Well, yeah, she also picked Drew, who was in the guys alliance. No,
yeah, but she picked Mary Payton first. It was just dumb. It sounded dumb. Look, can we keep it real? I know the audience is with me on this. This was dumb. It looked like she was jealous. It looked like what I told you when we were reviewing the women, and Mary Payton was going to get picked off because she's the prettiest girl there. Did I not call it, Taran? This is exactly
you think that Kimberly picked Mary because she was pretty, and she picked Drew because he was in a guys alliance?
Yep, that's what I'm saying.
That's a weird mixture of motivations there, though. One is strategic and one is extremely petty.
Explain this to me, then. I don't get why you picked Mary Payton for the. She even said it on Twitter. She's like, "Hi, everybody. I'm the leader of the Guys Alliance." Anyway, like, it's just nonsensical. I don't understand this. Again, the battle match selections. If there's one place where this show needs help, it's in the battle match selections, because there's so many times they're literally like, what the fuck? Like, you don't understand why people get picked. And I know that there's people out there that like, oh, well, you know, we like chaos, and that's interesting. It keeps things interesting. But as I watched a patron say in the Rob as a patron group a few weeks ago, when they were talking about Survivor, they're like, I like a good blindside as much as everybody else, but I like it when the contestants get blindsided. I don't like it when I get blindsided as a member of the audience. Like, as a member of the audience, I should know what the hell just happened and why things happen on my television screen. Otherwise, why the fuck am I watching this show? I do feel like that probably needs help. But I mean, anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. We still need to talk about all the people who failed this twist.
Well, I don't mind getting blindsided myself, as long as there's an explanation right after. Like, if I have to wait until the reunion to get the explanation for this choice, that's like, if I'm being honest, I do remember that's no good.
I agree. I do remember last season that we did have check-ins with the pre-jury. So I anticipate we will hear from Kimberly I don't know for sure, but I'm hoping that we'll hear from Kimberly in this next episode about why the hell she chose Mary Payton and Drew. Also, and you know she's not going to cop to the fact that Mary Payton is gorgeous. So whatever, I don't even care what she says at this point, I guess. But,
you've already decided.
I've already decided. But I'm hoping, because remember last season when DJ chose Hamza and Jesse, that we got, like, I remember there was him talking in the jury house, the pre-jury house, and he was explaining like why he chose those two guys, or that those two guys are afraid of him, or whatever the hell he said. So I'm sure we'll get something from her.
Yeah, and you know, whether it's at the start of the next episode or right after it happens, if it needs to be a flashback, like whatever it is, I definitely would like to know, you know, what it is, why these people are now in danger. It definitely is part, I think, of the emotional, you know, hit to know what happened here and why. But I think if it's at the start of the next episode, I think that's fine.
Okay.
So
sounds good.
So that's ultimately what happens. It's going to result in a tie between Kimberly and Tori. And that's because the guys had decided they wanted to take a strike at Tori. And Thomas did not want to vote with them in case that there were too many votes for Tori and then they were exposed. And so he wanted to just kind of burn his vote on somebody that he felt nobody would vote for, which I felt like was the lesser of the two ways to burn your vote. He voted for Mary Payton in an attempt to be like, hey, you know, I'm just going to throw my vote away. But in doing so, he exposed himself in a different way, in the sense that he was one of the 8 people that did not vote for Dustin. And because nobody's vote was exposed, he could have theoretically been one of the votes for the person that left. And so I feel like the better plan would have been to just go ahead and vote Dustin there.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I didn't understand Thomas here in deciding to vote for Mary Payton. What was the point of that again? Because you're just exposing yourself that you didn't vote for Dustin. You're going to be amongst the other people who didn't vote for Dustin. If you're going to try to throw your vote away, at least join these other yahoos who decided to vote for Dustin and throw their vote away with them. I feel like that was definitely the better course of action here. By the way, Kimberly in the chat saying, "Be patient, Brent," in capital letters. All will be answered. And I'm like, my response to that is, have you met me? Have you seen me on RHAP before? Patience is not my middle name.
Yeah. Not one of Brent's many virtues.
Thank you. By the way, just to explain to people what the hell happened here. So, again, 20 people in the game. 12 people decided to abdicate their responsibility and vote for Dustin, or as Taran likes to say, throw their vote away and, show people that they can be trusted. I'm not going to read to you those people yet, but let's go through the other 8 people. So the way this happened was Deena and Christine were the votes for Kimberly. Remember Deena? She got pissed off with Kimberly because she heard her name being bandied about, and Kimberly was eventually the person that she landed on. I will say that the person who I probably had the most faith in here when I saw them do some work on the screen was Christine. Christine realized here that Deena was put out with her, or potentially put out with her, and went to her and said, you know what? I've got to clean up this mess. I saw that she was shooting daggers at me. I'm going to go talk to her. And she talked to Deena, and Deena gave her a name, said, I'm voting for Kimberly. And Christine's like, okay, I will do that. I'm so sorry. I wasn't voting for you. I didn't throw your name around. Which, of course, she's lying through her teeth, but she's trying to convince Deena here, I had nothing to do with your name coming up. I will not target you. I love you. You're great. Awesome. Whatever. And then she says, okay, I'm going to target Kimberly. She's like, fine. I'll vote for Kimberly. I give you my word. So I felt like in that case that Christine definitely got the target off of her and on to somebody else. Now, not to give her too much credit here, but you saw at the end, she said she voted for Kimberly, and she said it was really a throwaway vote. She really thought that it wasn't going to mean anything, and that her vote for Kimberly didn't mean squat, when in actuality, it was their 2 votes that carried the day here, because 2 votes for Kimberly from Deena and Christine, 2 votes from Tori from Thanos and Lex Luthor in Drew and Matt. And then there were 4 other people who literally had their head up their ass, who didn't know what they were doing. Hunter voted for Matt. Thomas voted for Mary Payton, as we talked about. Ty voted for Zach. So Purple Kelly voted for Purple Kelly here, Taran. And then we saw Kimberly voted for Erica. I would also like to come for Kimberly here, because she was in the confessionals talking about how I'm a strong woman and I don't like to be told what to do. And so my vote is for Erica. Which is all well and good. But bitch, did you get anybody else to vote for Erica? Like, what about your girl Tori? Did she vote for Erica? Did you have anybody else that voted for Erica? Like, she said she wanted to get rid of her, but then, like, I didn't see her talk to anybody about Erica. She just did it on her own, which, great. You get a yes queen moment on TV, but that's about all it was good for there. Like, I didn't understand that at all. Tori, by the way, was one of the people that voted for Dustin and threw her vote away. I have the quote from Tori, which I wanted to read here. She said, Dustin has committed to getting a bunch of votes thrown on him. I have committed to voting for him because I don't want him to accidentally go home. Fast forward to 20 minutes later, when Tori's life is literally hanging in the balance because she's in a tie here and didn't worry about protecting herself. So I am not swayed by your opinion on this. I think that these 12 people, to varying degrees, really screwed this up, and they were so lucky that the vote just didn't land on them. But to me, being lucky is not something to be proud of in the Sequester game.
I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence, though, that Kimberly, who did not vote for Dustin, is the one that goes home in the revote. And I don't know what the vote count was on the revote.
I feel like my read on that is that she pissed off more people than Tori.
I think part of that is that when you followed through with something that you said you were going to do, you are more trustworthy. So, you know, people Dustin and the people that voted for Dustin, I think, are all going to be Team Tori for doing what the majority did, versus Kimberly, who could have voted for anybody, including any of them or Tori or anybody. And that's dangerous.
I suppose. The thing that I wasn't able to see is did Kimberly actually give Dustin her word saying that I will vote for you? Like, or is that just fake news? Did that never really happen? Because she never gave him, her word, like some of these other people who were so worried. It just killed me, you guys. So many people are worried about fucking Dustin. And I'm like, why are you worried about Dustin? Worry about yourself. Worry about you. Like, you could go home here if you don't know where the votes are going. I really can't. If I'm being real, because we hadn't talked before this episode, which is common practice. Me and Taran, we don't talk before the episodes because I don't want to leave the gold for the podcast on the cutting room floor. I want to see it on the show. But I can't believe that you're not with me on this and being absolutely incredulous that at least some of these people really screwed this up, and it was only by the grace of God that they weren't targeted.
I mean, I guess, but I mean, it's kind of only by the grace of God that anybody is targeted at this point. It's so chaotic that literally anybody could go home, and I do feel like being a part of the majority is always going to be safer than not being a part of the majority, regardless of these rules. And like I said, I don't think it's a coincidence that the 12 that voted for Dustin all survived into the next round, apart from perhaps Mary, and we'll find out why she was chosen for the battle match. But you know, and I guess it's hard to make this point without knowing why. But but I do think that it was more likely than not that those people would be a bit safer than anybody else at this junction.
All right, fine. I can see. I'm not going to convince you. By the way, we'll go with MP from now on. It's not. It's Mary Payton or MP, one of the two. But it's definitely not Mary. I was told that initially. So we'll call her MP and call it a day. I think that's about it. If there are other people you wanted to come for, Jayla said that it's too early to play, quote, that game. If we say we're going to do it, then just do it. I was like literally screaming at my television here on the rewatch because I knew what was going to happen. And I then fast forward to Jayla later on where Kimberly and Tori are in the tie and she's like, what the hell happened to Deena and Erica? And I'm like, what are you talking about? What happened to Deena and Erica? Did you ever get a commitment from people that they were voting for Deena and Erica? Or were you too worried about saving frickin' Dustin? Because from what I saw, it looked like you were more worried about saving Dustin's ass than you were worried about making sure that yourself didn't get voted out.
Yeah, well, look, I ultimately, you know, if we're talking about like how do you get through this round, I do think that if somebody is dumb enough to volunteer to get the votes put on them, then I think that's the perfect route to go. I think that you put your votes on them unless you hear your name anywhere. And if you don't have somebody to let you know that you're in trouble at this point in the game, then you're already screwed, because even Deena had somebody that was able to let her know that her name was being thrown around. And then if you hear that your name is being thrown around, that's when you start going, okay, never mind, I am going to start playing this. And I'm going to make sure that I don't vote this way and that I, you know, do what I can. Because, you know, it's basically then you try to be involved in as many conversations as you can to make sure that you're controlling, that your name is not getting thrown around. You hear what other people are saying, you get a sense of what they're doing and the names that are being thrown around by them, and then you just kind of gotta hope that nobody has it out for you. The two people that did get the 2 votes here did have people that were gunning for them, and their names had been brought up. Kimberly, you know, kind of got caught and was in trouble because of the situation with Deena. She got caught saying Deena's name, and Tori was somebody who was being targeted by the guys, and her name was out there, and she should have known to
it
stop
was out
that.
there. Yeah, it was out there. I take your point on that, and I also agree that Kimberly. By the way, Kimberly's in the chat, and she said that she did not give Dustin her word that she was voting for him. In fact, she said that outright that she was voting for Erica. So, but again, I'm like, if you obviously had some sort of distaste for Erica, Kimberly. Like, you told people that you're voting for Erica, and then you did vote for Erica, and then you didn't pick her for the battle match.
Yeah, I don't know why she didn't pick her for the battle match.
I don't understand why she didn't pick her for the battle match either. By the way, there's this speaking of Erica, really cool, interesting conversation between Dimples and Erica. So Kevin, who's Dimples, goes to Erica and says, you know, hey, it's looking like that people are voting for you. Like, I'm hearing your name. And she's like, well, where's that coming from? And he's like, I don't know, like Tori. And then Erica's like, well, let's reverse it back onto Tori. And so she says, let's put it back onto Tori. And she also says, so I'm not voting for Dustin now? And then Kevin's like, yes, you're still voting for Dustin, but we still have to get the votes split onto Tori and Deena. And then Kevin says, I already know I'm going for Dustin. And Erica's like, I already told him I would vote for him, but now I don't know. You could literally go home with 2 votes. Yes, which is exactly what happened. And then she says, I guess it doesn't really matter who I vote for, technically, as long as I make sure the votes aren't on me. Which I guess is sort of okay, considering what you just said. But on the other hand, she knew that some votes were coming toward her. So once you hear your name, I feel like you have to abandon ship here. And it's like at that point, you cannot throw your vote away on Dustin anymore. You have to vote for somebody else. You have to vote for somebody that's actually going to count. Are you with me on that at least?
Depending on the conversations that you have, right? You have to go and have more conversations and get a sense of like, okay, who is saying my name? Talk to those people, talk to other people. It's going to be difficult for other people to get away from doing the Dustin vote, because if you change your vote, now what Christine did certainly saved herself from Deena's wrath, but I do worry about Christine in the sense that, if I'm Dustin and Christine promised me that she'd vote for me and then she did not, she put me in danger. That's no good for me as Dustin. And if I am any of the 12 that voted for Dustin, any of the other 11 that voted for Dustin, then I'm also, kind of like, okay, well, we were a majority. We followed through with a thing. There was somebody that said they were going to be with us and was not. And so I do wonder if that will hurt Christine moving forward into future rounds.
It's a fair point. I feel like that considering he only needed 8 and got like 12 votes here, that Dustin will be like, oh, shoot, who cares? Like, it all worked out in the end. And I don't feel like she'll get any reverberations from that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I think that it's easily fixable. It's early in the game. But it is a situation where she might have to do a little bit of damage control. And I don't think it's impossible damage control to do, but it is something else you have to worry about in terms of, if you are going to switch your vote away, then that might have repercussions as well. So, it's interesting.
By the way, I see ya, Flava Dave in the chat. I agree with Brent here. I don't know what you're talking about, but God bless you. Thank you.
All right. Well, that was the first episode. We have lost Kimberly as the first out, and that's, of course, the person that Brent picked as his winner pick.
Thank you for reminding people that. Yes, that's very good.
Yes.
Well done.
And next up, we're going to see MP versus Drew in a battle match. We saw very shifty, staticky images of it. Felt like I was back in the 90s watching channels I didn't have. I don't know, it looked a little physical to me. It looked like they were running around, but it also looked like they were not exerting themselves too much. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's going to be anything that physical. I'm sure it's because if it is, then let's just call it now. Who's going to win this between Drew and MP. But I have to feel like it's probably going to be pretty gender neutral, and I'm excited to see what happens. I'm also excited to get an explanation other than she's the prettiest bitch here from Kimberly. So that would be nice. By the way, I just want to say, I know that, look, this is a show we're covering for the first time. I just want to say this because I've been, the biggest proponent of Sequester, and I still am. It is a freaking amazing show. Just because we have little quibbles here and there with the direction of the show or, something that worked or something that didn't, I'm basically telling the cast and the production, don't get butthurt about it. I come for everybody. That's what you wanted. I told you were going to get the real Brent, and here you go.
Yeah, I mean, if you invite Brent into your house, then you can't complain when he trashes it.
Right?
It's unfortunately the truth.
But it gives me so much joy to be able to trash these people, though. I honestly, I really thought I'm going to have trouble here because I got to meet these people. I've even talked to them, a few of them offline. I'm going to have a little trouble. It's hard to, it's one thing if I see them on screen on Big Brother. I don't know them from Boo. So I can come for them. I can come for Julie Chen. I can come for the production team. I can call it rigged. I can do whatever the hell I want. But then when you actually know the production team and you know the cast and you've talked to them, it is another thing entirely. But thank God they played so badly in the first episode that they totally unshackled me here, and I was able to totally come for all of them. God bless you all. I thank you for this.
Well, there you go. I'm just a robot. I just say things as I see them, and it's just the way it is. So
that's the way it is.
I feel what I speak. So if you disagree, I'm happy to talk.
By the way, if we didn't say your name tonight, you're being too much Purple Kelly. So turn it on for the second episode, will ya?
Yeah, go back in time.
Pick up the pace. Like, look, for real, I saw Judd on another podcast last night, and he was talking about the fact that so many people from season 2 wish they could have played their season differently once they saw that it wasn't like Big Brother or Survivor, that you don't have, weeks on end to rev up to your right gameplay and speed, that you've literally got to hit the ground running. And he's right. And I worry so many about these, so many of these people in season 3 that they're probably going to get voted out without having done anything in the game, gotten any good confessionals, done anything of note, and before you know it, their game's over. So don't be that way. I know it already took place. I know it already took place in the past, Taran, but I'm trying to will it into existence here.
Well, I think that's Audrey there, right? It was Sequester Access. She is the one running that account.
Who is Taran's favorite after episode 1? That's what they want to know.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone really. I did like Cameron. I liked Jayla. I mean, I didn't see much of Kristen in this episode, but I still like her from the preseason, and she didn't like disappoint me or anything. So that's all right.
Something about Kristen said early on, which I made a note to write down, was that Kristen was worried about the fact that her energy and that her spontaneity would really rub people the wrong way. But then she met these people, and they're basically like 19 versions of herself going, yeah. So she doesn't have to worry about that in terms of annoying people, because there are people just like herself in varying degrees all around her. So hopefully she feels more at home. I was very impressed by Kristen and Braden. I know that's sort of the chalk pick for a lot of these Sequester fans. A lot of the people who played online Sequester really are big fans of Braden and Kristen. But I feel like they acquitted themselves pretty well this episode, at least in the social game. Obviously, both of them in the end voted for Dustin. They could have gone home here, but they're lucky they didn't.
All right. Well, I can't say that anyone in particular stood out from this episode, but I will definitely be looking forward to the next one and seeing if anybody really pops up as a front runner or just a fun person. I don't know.
Yeah, just be fun. At least if you're not gonna win, like, remember, only one person out of 20 is gonna win. At least be fun. Have a good time. All right. And so many of these people, they told me that they were going to do that, and then I saw them falling asleep during the first episode, Taran. So, I know it was early in the morning, but wake up.
All right. Well, that's what we have for you. I hope you enjoyed our first episode recap of Sequester Season 3. We will be back next week at around the same time to talk about Episode 2. And, hopefully we'll get some explanations. We'll, learn more about these people and who they are and who they're working with and who they like. And
yes. By the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I told the chat that I would show them my Sequester t-shirt. I'm wearing a Sequester t-shirt. So here you go. I don't know if you can see it or not, but very cool. And remember that the camera adds 10 pounds. So for those of you who just saw my waistline, there you go.
There you go. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. You can find me on Twitter at Armstrong Taran, on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, and Instagram at Taran_Armstrong. Brent, where can people find you?
You can find me at One Lucky Gay. That's one spelled out, O-N-E, across all platforms. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. And hit me up. Tell me what you thought. Tell me if you hated me. Tell me if you love me. Tell me if you hated Taran, especially. That's always fun. And tell me what you thought about Sequester, because we're trying to get the word out about this awesome show.
All right. Thank you once again for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See ya.